videos. So we're just going to share last night, and now it's on the website. So we left it with share. And then let me do this quick PowerPoint and then turn it over to Secretary.
Call the meeting to order 6:06. Please rise for the pledge. Catch up. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have a few people in the audience, so I think we're just going to go around and introduce ourselves. Beth, do you want to start us off?
Sure. Beth Mysteriak, board member.
Stefan Behuniak, board member.
Shannon Levy, board member.
Kristen Bruno, board member.
Jay Hatfield, Board Vice Chair.
Chris Champagne, board chair.
Ed Jamel, Secretary.
James Garofalo, Board Member.
Kristen Harling, Chair of the Finance Committee. Leanne Doherty, Board Clerk.
Dr. Susan Compton, Superintendent of Schools.
Vonda Tunz, Associate Superintendent.
Dr. Chris Boyle, Director of Pupil Services. Salvatore Bucci, Business Manager.
All right, thank you. I see first item up, section 2 is public comment. Do we have anyone from the public who'd like to make a comment? Anyone from the public like to make a comment? Going once? Public comment twice? 3 times? Okay, the first section of public comment is closed. Next item we have up is the Seymour Education Budget 22-23. I will turn it over to Dr. Compton and Mr. Bucci.
We'd like to first start out with to showcase our 4 schools in Seymour. Tonight we're going to show one video. If you'll check your website, under each of the schools, you will see the videos that were just put up this evening. Due to time restraints, we can't show them all at this board meeting, at this budget workshop. Each time we have a board meeting from here on, we're going to showcase the other 3. We're going to start tonight with Bungay Elementary. Thank you, Mrs. Feige, Mrs. Reed, for all your outstanding work, and also to the rest of the principals and assistant principals, and also especially to Mr. Rob Dyer, who prepared this video. We're just extremely proud. We want you to sit back and just look and listen to this, because this showcases Seymour Public Schools and a life in the day of a child, and why this budget and this process is so important to us. So, Derek, if you can help us out. Board members, you may need to turn around where you can see, and maybe the whole. Turn it over.
There are so many wonderful things happening at our school. Our school hosts climate, we use responsive classrooms, Aaron School Community Program. We have morning meetings and social circles, school spirit days, and we have Rotary, the 2022 United Assistant Service School of the Year supportive families, and an amazing staff who all work together to help grow our learning community. Building school is a great place to be because we always have a very friendly and very school community. We create schools that are organized. Bungie School is a great place to be because we have enthusiastic students who love to learn. Bungie School is a great place to be. One of the greatest things about our school is that our staff and students are great at working together. Our school offers a safe and welcoming environment, which makes it a wonderful place to be. Bungie is a great place to be because all of our staff and students are very kind. Bungie School is a great place to be because everyone is kind and very caring. Bungie School is a great place to be because it's a great place to be.
I think one of the things that makes Bungay School such a great place to be is how welcoming the school climate is. I think both staff and students feel welcome when they're here and they know that they belong.
Bungie School is a great place because we get to interact with residents and students.
Bungie School is a great place to be because we are all like a family. Administration, staff, and students all work hard, support each other, and have fun learning together.
Bungie School is a great place to be because you can learn and you can have fun.
Bungay School is a great place to be
Because we believe that all children can learn. We hope you enjoyed our video. As you can see, Bungie School is a great place to be. We would like to offer a special thank you to Dr. Susan Thompson, superintendent of schools, students, parents, and staff for helping make this video possible. Thank you for all your support and making our school a great place to be.
Derek, if you could just turn that around so the audience can see very quickly. All of our school board members have a copy of this quick PowerPoint presentation. Yes. Okay, Board of Ed members, I think you thoroughly enjoyed, and so did the audience, the presentation with Bungay Elementary. We're really excited in the future to showcase the other 3 schools that are finished now with their videos. So make sure the rest of this week, when you get time, you can view those, and then we'll showcase the other schools as well. We'd like to just start out as a reminder of our mission statement of the Seymour Public Schools and why it's always such a great place to emphasize that our students, that basically as learners, to educate and inspire through a range of experiences that reflect high expectations for learning and prepare them to meet the challenges of an ever-changing world. And I thought this was a wonderful mission statement. I was impressed with it when I first came here and also during my interview process. I'd like for us to always remember, what is our vision for Seymour Public Schools? Where do we plan on going? One of the recommendations from one of our board members, as well as I think many other board members, is that we currently have a strategic plan, but it's also revising and taking that strategic plan to the next level. And we want to revise that. That's been one of our goals, as well as Mrs. Tinson, myself as superintendent and associate superintendent, as well as our principals. I'd like for you to just look and focus on what have been your 3 goals. And as we always know, it's to promote individual student learning. And one of the things I think Seymour has done a great job during the pandemic is really emphasizing the importance of social and emotional learning. And I just want to say I wasn't here during the first year going back to March 2020, but I think Seymour did an outstanding job and definitely coming back with the social and emotional learning parts and well utilizing ESSER 1 and some of ESSER 2. So when you look at your three goals, it's student engagement with curriculum, it's goal 2 with climate and culture, it's goal 3 with community involvement. One of the things that I have learned while I've been here, first and foremost, what our budget core values are. And as the board has always emphasized to me, students come first. From the boardroom to the classroom, every decision based it's got to be on what is best for students. And that was part of the reason of showcasing this video tonight. The most critical work lives in the classrooms, whether it's a special ed classroom, co-teaching, an elementary classroom, or a middle school or a high school classroom. And truly our job is to prepare our students for the future as leaders of the 21st century. So one of the things, and just looking down at what the goals are, definitely is to meet the resources that are needed, provide that ongoing, rigorous, relevant curriculum, maintaining class size with guidelines, while flexibility adjusting to enrollment changes, providing the technology infrastructure, and maintain current instructional programming. So again, core values. What are our changes for 22-23? One of the situations, as Mrs. Tinsewell reminded me of this morning, she said, Dr. Compton also, is again making up lost learning opportunities for our students. Due to the pandemic, there have been gaps, achievement gaps. We've moved closely in trying to close those gaps, but no district, I don't care where you go in the nation, has totally recovered totally. Most situations, if you'll check, the number one content area that is deficient is always math. So again, another goal is meeting the social and emotional needs of our students and meeting the goals set by the Board of Education while adjusting to meet the current economic realities of school funding. At our last meeting, we talked a little bit, we're not going to go there again, just about the fiscal year 2022 with the budget deficit due to a miscalculation. And I've explained that before. Mr. Bucci did quite a thorough job with that. I'd like to just quote some of this directly taken from Mr. Bucci's budget notebook in regards, just looking at 22-23. Right now, if we left everything that is currently in place in the Seymour Public Schools without making any changes, it would take 6.9% to support this. Due to the miscalculation, we're looking at a 2.3% to make up for. And as we're now planning for the 22-23 budget that we want to present to the town finance committee, one of the things that we've got to look for now to just take care of this coming year would be a 4.5% increase. So I did a little past history from what Mr. Bucci had covered with me, and as we looked at expenditures in the past for 21, the budget increase was only a 1.5%, and to really cover the expenditures. In 2022, the expenditures increased 4.2, but the budget increase was a 2%. Basically, what sometimes happens, folks, sometimes you overspend and you're not staying within your budget. It's just like a personal home budget. So what did we do immediately? After talking to the chair of the town finance committee, both First Select Woman Anne Marie and I did an immediate freeze on budgets, period. So I sent that to our board members as just saying this is where we're at, this is what I'm recommending to do. So that's currently what we're doing. Only spending on an as-needed basis and basically to provide only what our kids in special ed classrooms and regular classrooms and our teachers have to teach. What do we also need to be doing? Reviewing all grant monies, anything related to COVID, government title monies, Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV. What do we have there? What is left? What could be moved next year to fund other expenditures? So here is the big ticket. Considering attrition, that's always a plan B. It hurts, it's not easy, but it may be what we may have to do. Seymour's public school enrollment is decreasing, and staff patterns must align. So we really have to look at that as a backup plan, because when you really look at over the years, many times in a lot of school districts, you keep coming and asking for more people, more everything, but enrollment's going down. But something you must also maintain is the high excellence of academic programs that you have in the school district. So I want to emphasize that as well. So it's a balancing act. So let's keep that in mind. District expenditures, let's go to the pie graph. Any school organization, you're going to see that at least 79 or 80% of the pie is 80% is personnel. And a good rule of thumb that Mr. Gucci has taught me, not that I've been doing this for, I won't say how many years, because we're not going to go there talking about my age and my years. But Mr. Gucci has well said, just put an average of a salary plus 30%, you're going to get the whole fringe benefits cost. And it truly, that's basically how you need to look at it. So as you see here, specifically the breakdown. Something that I have researched, this school system, Seymour High School started in 1884. And your people for many years, your staff, your administration, and your school community, as well as your boards, for all these years, has promoted totally academic excellence. But now we've got to look at where are we, where do we need to go. It's going to take all of us working together. It's going to take a team. It's going to take thinking out of the box. And as you've always taught me here, you're the Seymour Wildcats. You're proud to be a Wildcat, always a Wildcat. So keep that in mind as well. One of the things you've always looked at every year, and Mrs. Tenza shared this and I also received it as well in an email, is the historical enrollment from the NSDEC. What is your enrollment showing? What is the projected enrollment? I think we have around 75 kindergarten students that will be coming in, hopefully for this coming fall. And then always, what does the district enrollment report show us? This is just one day. It was done in January. So, where do we go? This was the dream list. This was called the initial administrative budget request. If we could take this to the gold standard of excellence, these are the programs we would have. And I think Mr. Freud and Mrs. Feige, I call them, it's like it's the golden list, all right. I always talk about Mrs. Feige and her champagne taste. This is giving everything that you would want for a child in Seymour. Mr. Freud was doing a good balancing act right with her. So these are the budget requests. But one of the things now, we've attached dollars to this. And I think that was a good recommendation, Mrs. Harley, and just looking at what would it cost to really take us to the next level. And then the other thing is, let's go straight to grants and funding and where we plan on going. Some of this is listed, doesn't mean it's going to happen. And then what is it all about? It's all about the kids. It's all about learning. So when you look at this is just a brief overview. It just kind of hits the highlights of what we discussed last Monday night. But let's really talk about ESSER funds. And when you look at currently what do we have, what are we going to do? One of the things we're going to do is we're going to utilize every grant we have. We're going to see what is legal to put in ESSER 2 funds that are left. We don't want to get in trouble like other places sometimes have done because that's not who we are. But legally looking at how that we can try to make up for some of this deficit for the rest of the year. Another thing is with the new ESSER grant, which is really not called ESSER 3, we always refer to that. That main grant, a lot of the proportion of that grant was fixed for infrastructure. It was really to do HVAC systems and various things. So that's kind of where we are with that. What monies are there? It's $1.7 million. This grant is restricted, so we have certain leeway. We've already spent, which is a good thing, $200,000 to put in new computers at the high school, which was very much needed for the programmatic recommendations to move Seymour High School forward. So that was something that we worked out also with Mr. Dyer. We're also going to look at technology expenses. What part of technology can be incorporated into some of these, especially ESSER 2 grants, or even into the last grant. We're going to look at everything we have. I know that's what you're going to expect us to do. I think maybe at the end, when Mr. Bucci finishes, you may have a question for me. And I'm just going to say, here's one proposal at a 6.9. And what happens if we go to the Finance Committee and they don't support that? Then what is our backup plan? So this is just an overview. We've got to get through this. This is one of the smartest boards of ed I've ever worked under. And together we will get this worked out. We're going to work with the town for a select woman, your town finance committee, your select men, all whatever. We're in it together. Because what's most important as I wrap up? What's the most important thing to a town? It's the quality of education. People move to a town because of the quality of education. Economic development is another situation. We hope that Seymour goes to the next level there as well. But that's all I know. But thank you.
Sal, did you have anything?
You want to emphasize some of the...
Sure.
Because he has worked days and evenings and whatever. Sometimes I'll run from him in the office in the evening because he's coming back with another expenditure or a sheet or a budget or whatever. So he spent hours and weeks ever since he's come here in November. Ms. Tinson and I have as well, just looking at where are we going to go. So, Mr. Bucci, anything you want to say? You've worked diligently with these additional pages, and you're the expert. I can't answer all these budget questions.
I just want to put into perspective really what the 22-23 year is about as it relates to finances. You know, this is really a quantitative exercise that enables you to wrap your head around what it actually costs to deliver, in this particular case, education. Many school districts, including Seymour, are looking at expenditures rising. We just concluded, and it went as far as arbitration, concluding a new three-year teacher contract. There was nothing over the top about the contract. It was a fair contract on both sides, and like I said, you know, the parties that pushed this thing as far as they could to try to come out with the best possible product for the teachers as well as for the school's finances. Overall, though, that contract will cost 3 to 3.5% over and above what we were spending this year for equivalent teacher compensation. And as Dr. Compton pointed out, I'm glad actually she was hearing this, it costs us roughly 31 cents in a dollar for every dollar of salary that we pay out. So when you hire someone, you really have to say it's 130% of that dollar. And sometimes that gets lost in the translation, and sometimes when you look at what happened here with this calculation or underestimation of employee benefits for this year, you know, sometimes you have to do a reasonableness test and say, wait a minute. If you look at this budget, there are $23 million worth of total salaries in the district. There was $7 million of total employee benefits in the budget. That's 31% or thereabouts. When you look at that, what is it made up of? It's the employer cost of providing health, dental, and vision insurance. It's pension contributions, Social Security taxes for those employees who are not teachers, Medicare taxes for everyone, HSA contributions, municipal employee retirement contributions for those who are non-certified staff who participate in that, which, by the way, is a statutory program that the state runs in which they get to just decide arbitrarily how much you're going to charge you, and then they can raise the rates. This past year, the rate went up 1.49% on the total payroll, and there is nothing you can do about it, and I've heard Mr. Sawicki say it seems to be the bane of everyone in a municipality that there is just simply no control over those costs. What happened in last year's budget? Two key items were underestimated. They contribute to this number that's been floating around in the press of about $800,000. But the reality is, it's not a deficit until we don't fix it. If we are able to, between now and the end of the year, move within the line items, monies that haven't been spent as a result of a freeze, to compensate for the monies that we didn't properly allocate for, and we are able to come in on budget by the end of the year, which is the goal we are undertaking now that we've figured out the problem, then there is no deficit. But what there is there is a true cost of where we are today to provide the employee benefits. So if you were to look at last year's budget allocated $5.8 million for employee benefits. The true cost in this fiscal 22 year is $6.6 million. That is the $800,000. When we look at next year, and Anthem tells us they want to raise premiums by 10 to 15%, and we in the town decided to budget for 12, that increases the cost another $400,000 and change, and so now next year the budget is $7 million, because you don't go from 5.8 plus 400, you have to go from 6.6 plus the 400 to stabilize the budget, to borrow a term of our chair of our board, to recalibrate the budget so that you're starting off on the right footing for next year. When you add that to the teacher salary increase, the 12% the teacher salary increase, you're talking about the 4.5% that is really the year-over-year expenditure increase in this budget. The other 2.3% that gets you to the 6.9, and I realize they don't add up, but it's the rounding error, is a fix. It's a fix. It's a one-time where we have to catch up, because if we go into next year without addressing the $800,000, we're going to be right back where we started from now, and we're going to have to find $800,000 next year, like we're trying to find $800,000 this year, and that's simply not a sustainable approach to getting your Board of Education budget on proper footing. So at the end of the day, when you look at this and you say, we have all of the components we need to be able to operate this district next year, we're not adding anything on the wish list that Dr. Compton talked about into this budget. We haven't added any personnel. We're looking at this as the component parts that are here are necessary to deliver the education. I have the quantitative job. Dr. Compton and the board, Mrs. Tenza, they have the qualitative job. How do they actually deliver the learning experience with the resources that are given to them? The point of this budget is to provide an accurate representation of what those resources are so that they have the tools to be able to go forward and provide the education in Seymour to its students. That is the underlying basis for this budget presentation.
Thanks, Al. So I think, Sal, the facts are there, the numbers are there. Regardless of what this board decides to do tonight, I think it's always a good idea to have more than one plan. I don't know what tomorrow brings. So I don't know, does anybody have questions for Dr. Compton, Mr. Bucci? Nobody? Ms. Burrow?
I just had a question about the enrollment as it was in your PowerPoint. Because looking in the budget book, it looks like we had a history of decreasing enrollment, but it looks like projected forward, it's not fluctuating that much, and it's just leveling off. Am I correct?
You're right, based upon, we also have another line graph that's not included in this, but it's also put in your budget workbooks, and that is true.
So we were able to have lower increases in the
Right.
prior years because we were also having less students.
Yeah.
But as our enrollment levels off, and these are projections, I
Right.
understand that it could change, but as it levels off, we can't sustain smaller percentage increases because we don't have the equivalent reduction in
Right.
students.
Yes.
Ms. Harmon?
I'd like to build on the talk about decreasing enrollment, because I do hear that quite often. Oh, we have less students now than we did before. Well, that is true when we're taking a 10-year, decades-long view, but a year-over-year enrollment decrease of 40 to 50 students spread out over 14 years of learning doesn't give us a really easy place to say, okay, we can now go without 2 teachers or 3 teachers, because if you think about a typical class size of anywhere from 18 to 24, that would equal 1 teacher if they were all in the same grade, but they're not in the same grade. So you're talking about, 3 to 5 fewer students per grade, which makes it not really feasible to year over year reduce the amount of staff we have. So cumulatively, that line chart, decade over decade, yes, and our staff has gone down decade over decade. But when we're talking about a 1-year increment, we can't really make an equivalent, oh, we're down 24 students this year, so therefore we can lose 1 teacher. Because, again, they're spread out over 14 years. So I think it's just important to keep that in mind.
I think that's a good point. I think it's also important to look at what specifically the last 5 years, and to really look at the enrollment as well with that. Let's look at the last 5 years.
Anyone else? So we've seen a budget presentation. We do have the item on the agenda. What is the board's pleasure?
I'd like to make a motion to move to adopt the budget as presented and adopt this as the 2022-2023 school year budget board approved.
Second. We have a motion by Ms. Harmeling, second by Mr. Bohuniak. Any discussion? No discussion. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes 9-0. I don't have a report. Did you have anything else to add?
Just that Wednesday at 7 o'clock is a Zoom meeting with the Town Finance Committee, which all of you that can, please be with us.
All right, and then item 5, public comment, the second section. Any? Anne Marie?
I'm going to be honest, first of all, with the town of Seymour. I understand that there is a deficit, there's a potential deficit on paper right now. But I believe what Dr. Robinson
says, we need to work together, we need to overcome this, and we need to see what we can do, both as a board and as a town. I've said this before, I'm all about transparency, and I want the board to be about transparency. So when we're asked questions, whether it's at the Board of Finance meeting, or it's by parents, or it's by myself, we have to remember that we're in this together, right? We're only as good as our Cleveland Indians. We're a good team, and we're going to get through this together, right? That's all.
Anybody else?
Fred Stanek, 22 North Benham Road, Seymour. Nice to see you folks once again on the other side of the table. I'm speaking tonight as a member of the Board of Selectmen. First Selectwoman asked me to be present to reiterate what she said, being a former member of this board and now present member of the Board of Selectmen, that this board needs to work together to try to solve the issues of the deficit, and the Board of Selectmen will work closely with you in trying to solve the problem. I look at this as two different columns, or two different buckets. We have the budget deficit, we have the next year budget. I think the first thing to do is to solve the present budget deficit and have a plan in place, and have that in place as quickly as possible, so that the public will know that this is being worked on. I understand what Mr. Bucci said, that this translates into additional dollars for the next year's budget. But you're going to have some alternative budgets. We all of us here know how the budget process works with the Board of Finance. So whatever I can do to help, and I know that Anne Marie, First Select Woman, wants to help to work this through. We all understand that the educational needs of our children are paramount, and we're going to work toward that. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public?
Hi, my name's Jamie Bailey. I just want to say I'm really concerned that there's such a big deficit. I don't understand how we got to this point, and just as a parent with children in this school district, it's very concerning to me. And that's really all I wanted to say. It's just that I'm really concerned, and I hope in the future this won't be a continuance.
Anyone else from the public? Going once? Going twice? Anyone from the public 3 times? Go ahead.
I'm doing my time to,
Can you step forward and just need your name and address?
she's gonna speak on my behalf. Yeah.
Hi, I'm just here to speak on behalf of parents who have been coming to these
We need
meetings.
your name and address, ma'am.
My name is Susan Zabahansky,
And your address?
28 Working Street.
Is that Seymour?
No, he stood up and yielded his time and gave his time to
He's
her.
having me speak on his behalf.
No.
He's having me speak on his behalf. I'm just speaking for him.
He would need to speak as a resident of Seymour.
Why, he can't have me speak on his behalf?
I yielded my time to her in order for her to.
You haven't done that in the past, no.
You're not going to let me speak on his behalf?
Some of the older ones here, I don't think we've ever done that.
That's not against your
before.
bylaws.
Doesn't matter.
It's not against your bylaws. I'm speaking on behalf of some parents here who just are uncomfortable speaking. They've been coming to meetings since August. It's 6 months later. The children are still in lockdown regarding mandates. We're asking this board to send a message to Hartford that you guys want to maintain local control of your schools. For too long, your hands have been bound regarding policy and procedure for COVID-related incidences. And we think that who better knows how to handle policies and procedures for the school than this particular board. There's many parents in town who have spoken to me about their concerns. We have new data, obviously, about cloth masking and their effectiveness. We're locking down the population that is least vulnerable to COVID. We know now that the COVID strain that is out currently does not affect nearly anyone as severely as the other strains. I don't think that it's an issue for this board to be asking for their legislators and governor to give local control back to this board to make policies and procedures that can be done in conjunction with your local health department that might be more suitable. I think the time is long past due that we say enough is enough, and you guys were elected for a position, and it's important for you to be representing your constituents here. And it's hard to do that when your hands are bound by Hartford and trying to understand their policies and procedures. Just another thing to mention to this board, the only mandate that you guys have to follow is the masking mandate. All other things are just guidance and can be debated on with your local health department and you all to make policies as far as quarantining and
all this other nonsense. I mean, you can be doing that at the local level. I think it's best for you to ask for that, and I would encourage this board to do that before this extension happens. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else from the public? Once, twice. The second section of public comment is closed. Item 6, adjournment.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?